Mark Renshaw adjusted his tie, glancing out the viewport of his diplomatic cruiser as it glided through the expanse of space. Beyond the reinforced glass, the twin suns of the Valor system bathed the distant gas giant in hues of orange and blue. The scene was deceptively serene, masking the tensions brewing among the stars. Mark, at just 35, had become a symbol of humanity's resolve and diplomatic finesse, having successfully brokered peace among rival alien factions on more than one occasion. His destination, the neutral trade hub of Arcany Station, was supposed to be a straightforward waypoint for another round of peace talks. The factions involved, a federation of oppressed alien species and their imperial overlords, had reluctantly agreed to human mediation. However, the Galactic Empire's history of ruthlessness loomed over every interaction. The diplomat's thoughts were interrupted by the cruiser's captain, who stepped into the room with a rigid salute. "Sir, we received a transmission from Arcany Station. They're confirming the conference schedule." Mark nodded, his calm demeanor unwavering. "Thank you, Captain. Let's make sure this mission goes smoothly. Too many lives are riding on it." The words had barely left his mouth when the ship jolted violently. Alarms blared, and the lights flickered ominously. "Status report," barked the captain, rushing back toward the bridge. Mark followed closely, his chest tightening as the cruiser's defensive system sprang to life. The view screen revealed the source of the attack. A fleet of sleek Imperial vessels, their black hulls glinting menacingly. "They've disabled our engines," shouted a crewman. "Shields are failing." Mark steadied himself against the console, his voice cutting through the chaos. "This is a diplomatic vessel under neutral jurisdiction. They have no right to attack us." The captain shook his head grimly. "Rights mean nothing to the Empire, sir. They've made their move." Within minutes, Imperial boarding craft latched onto the cruiser. Mark watched as the ship's security forces mounted a desperate resistance, their energy rifles blazing against the oncoming stormtroopers. Despite their valiant efforts, the outcome was inevitable. The Empire's forces overwhelmed the defenders, flooding the ship like a relentless tide. When the airlock to the bridge blew open, Mark stood firm, his expression a mix of defiance and resignation. He recognized the towering figure who entered, a high-ranking Imperial officer clad in black armor, his face obscured by a helmet that reflected Mark's own image back at him. "Diplomat Renshaw," the officer intoned, his voice a mechanical growl through his helmet's modulator. "By order of the Galactic Emperor, you are hereby taken into custody. Any resistance will result in the extermination of your crew." Mark raised his hand slowly, his sharp mind already racing for solutions. This act of aggression will have consequences. Humanity does not respond kindly to threats. The officer's posture stiffened, a faint hiss escaping his helmet. "Your humanity is weak. The Emperor has decided it's time to remind you of your place." The crew was disarmed and restrained as Mark was led away, his footsteps echoing through the corridors of his commandeered ship. As he boarded the Imperial shuttle, he cast a final glance at the defeated crew, silently vowing that this would not be the end. Back on Earth, the news of Mark Renshaw's capture spread like wildfire. In the Terran High Command's war room, General Carl Jones slammed his fist on the table. "They've crossed the line. Capturing a diplomat is an act of war." Around him, a dozen military leaders and advisors murmured in agreement, their faces grim. A holographic projection displayed the Galactic Empire's ultimatum: the release of alien prisoners held on Earth in exchange for Mark's life. The Empire's demands were brazen. For years, humanity had walked a tightrope, maintaining uneasy neutrality in the Empire's disputes with other species. The prisoners in question were defectors, aliens who had fled the Empire's tyranny and sought asylum under humanity's protection. President Adrian Wells, a pragmatic leader with streaks of silver in his dark hair, broke the tense silence. "We can't negotiate under these terms. If we give in, they'll see it as a sign of weakness. But if we don't," he trailed off, his gaze shifting to General Jones. Jones's jaw tightened. Then we show them what humanity does when pushed. A plan began to take shape, shrouded in secrecy. Officially, Earth condemned the Empire's actions and appealed to the Galactic Council for intervention. Behind closed doors, however, preparations for a covert rescue mission were already underway. Aboard the Imperial transport, Mark sat in a dimly lit cell, his hands bound and his mind sharp. He knew his captors intended to use him as leverage, but he also knew the tenacity of his people. The Empire underestimated humanity's capacity to strike back. When the transport entered hyperspace, carrying him deeper into enemy territory, Mark allowed himself a small, determined smile. Somewhere out there, he believed, humanity was already preparing its response. The stage was set, the pieces in motion. The galaxy was about to witness what humanity was truly capable of. The Terran High Command's war room buzzed with restrained urgency as holographic schematics of the Empire's infamous detention facility on Zorth Prime shimmered in the air. Around the central table, hardened soldiers and top strategists debated the impossible. At the helm stood General Carl Jones, his broad frame and battle-worn face a symbol of humanity's indomitable spirit. His voice cut through the clamor like steel. Enough, Jones commanded, silencing the room. His eyes swept over the gathered personnel. The Empire thinks they've boxed us in. They believe we'll fold under pressure. But we're not giving them anything, except hell. The room fell silent as Jones turned to face the hologram. Zorth Prime, he continued, gesturing to the image of the prison. A fortress world with one of the most heavily fortified detention facilities in the galaxy. That's where they're holding Mark Renshaw. The Empire expects us to flinch. Instead, we're going to take him back. Murmurs of apprehension rippled through the room. One voice rose above the rest. "Sir, that's practically suicide," Captain Jack Harlow said, stepping forward. Tall and rugged, Harlow was a man who had spent more time on battlefields than in the comforts of Earth. His black tactical suit and cold, calculating gaze marked him as the leader of the Black Valkyries, humanity's most elite strike force. Jones met Harlow's gaze without flinching. "That's why I'm assigning this to you, Captain. Your team's the best we've got. If anyone can pull this off, it's the Valkyries." Harlow exhaled sharply but nodded. "What's the intel?" Jones gestured, and the hologram shifted to display the detention center in greater detail. Zorth Prime's atmosphere is toxic, requiring pressurized facilities. The prison itself is subterranean, accessible only through a single heavily guarded shaft. Advanced surveillance systems monitor every inch of the base. And the guards, he paused, his jaw tightening. They're the Empire's best. Any good news? Harlow asked, his tone dry. Jones allowed himself a faint smile. The Empire doesn't know we're coming. The next phase of the meeting shifted to the Valkyries' war room, where Harlow and his team pored over mission details. Each member of the squad was handpicked, a master in their craft. First was Lieutenant Mason Drake, the team's tech specialist. With quick fingers and a sharper mind, Drake had hacked into systems that other experts deemed impenetrable. He studied the hologram intently, his green eyes gleaming with possibilities. "Those surveillance grids are impressive," Drake murmured, "but not flawless. A well-timed EMP will knock them out long enough to slip through undetected." Beside him stood Sergeant Cole Vance, the team's demolitions expert. Vance, broad-shouldered and gruff, smirked at Drake's assessment. "And here I thought we'd just blow the place up." Harlow shot Vance a warning look. "We're going clean, Cole. Subtlety is key. If we alert the Empire, this mission turns into a bloodbath." The final member of the core team was Corporal Ethan Kane, the sniper and Overwatch expert. Silent and methodical, Kane examined the perimeter defenses with precision, his face betraying no emotion. "I'll take the high ground here," he said, pointing to a ridge near the facility. "It's a natural blind spot. I can cover the extraction." Harlow nodded approvingly. "Good. Everyone has their roles. Now let's make it happen." Preparation began in earnest. In the Valkyrie's armory, Harlow inspected their gear, ensuring every piece of equipment met the mission's demands. Cloaking suits, designed to bend light and render the wearer nearly invisible, were tested rigorously. Lightweight EMP grenades were fine-tuned to maximize disruption while minimizing collateral damage. As they worked, Harlow gathered his team for a final briefing. "This mission isn't just about Renshaw," he said, his voice steady but charged with conviction. "It's about sending a message. The Empire thinks they can intimidate us, use fear to break us. We're going to show them just how wrong they are." The team responded with hawk silence, their expressions hardened by years of shared battles. They understood the stakes. Failure wasn't an option. On the eve of the mission, Harlow found himself alone in the war room, staring at the schematics one last time. The weight of responsibility pressed heavily on his shoulders. He knew the risks, knew that even with the Valkyrie's skill and precision, the mission could still end in disaster. General Jones entered the room, his steps measured. "You're doing the right thing, Jack," he said quietly. Harlow didn't look up. "Am I?" "Sending my team into a fortress on a toxic planet to rescue one man. It's a hell of a gamble." Jones placed a firm hand on Harlow's shoulder. "Mark Renshaw represents more than just one man. He's the symbol of what humanity stands for. If we let the Empire get away with this, we lose more than him. We lose everything." Harlow finally looked up, his expression hawk. "Then we'd better not lose." The Valkyries departed under the cover of darkness, their cloaked dropship slicing silently through space. The toxic clouds of Zorth Prime swirled ominously below, a harbinger of the dangers to come. As the ship descended, Harlow addressed his team one last time. "This is it. We go in fast, we go in quiet, and we get Renshaw out alive. Stick to the plan, trust each other, and we'll make it back." The Valkyries exchanged nods, their faces set with determination. The dropship shuddered as it pierced Zorth Prime's atmosphere, the detention facility looming in the distance. Harlow's voice broke through the comms. "Remember, no one expects us. Let's keep it that way." The mission had begun. The toxic winds of Zorth Prime howled against the hull of the Valkyrie's cloaked dropship as it touched down on a barren plateau outside the Imperial detention facility. The team moved with clockwork precision, their cloaking suits activating with a faint hum, rendering them little more than shadows against the desolate backdrop. "Eyes up! Stay tight! Captain Jack," Harlow whispered through the comms. His voice, calm but firm, carried the authority of a man who had survived countless impossible missions. The detention facility loomed ahead, a monolithic structure half buried beneath the planet's surface, its exterior bristling with anti-aircraft turrets and sensor arrays. The Valkyries slipped past patrols and perimeter guards, their movements silent, their cloaking tech confounding even the facility's advanced surveillance systems. Lieutenant Mason Drake led the team to the facility's primary access point, a maintenance hatch nestled in the shadow of a towering observation tower. Dropping to one knee, Drake swiftly bypassed the hatch's biometric lock, his fingers dancing across his portable hacking device. "Security grid is down," he murmured. "But we got about 5 minutes before their systems notice something's off." "Plenty of time," Harlow replied, motioning for the team to move. Inside, the corridors were dimly lit, their sterile metal walls echoing with the distant hum of machinery. The Valkyries advanced methodically, their weapons raised, their movements choreographed to avoid detection. Sergeant Cole Vance paused at a junction, his hand raised in a silent signal. 2 Imperial guards approached, their boots clanking against the floor. Vance nodded to Corporal Ethan Kane, who had already taken position in the shadows above. A muffled thwip broke the silence as Kane's silenced rifle fired, and the guards crumpled without a sound. "Clear," Kane whispered, lowering his weapon. The team reached the control room, where a network of surveillance feeds revealed the detention cells below. Mark Renshaw's cell was highlighted on Drake's holomap, but the path was far from straightforward. A squad of elite Imperial guards patrolled the cell block, and automated turrets lined the corridors leading to the extraction point. "Suggestions?" Harlow asked, his eyes scanning the feeds. Drake smirked. "We can use their systems against them. A localized EMP will disable the turrets and scramble their comms long enough for us to grab Renshaw." Vance chuckled, pulling an EMP grenade from his pack. "Music to my ears." "Keep it clean," Harlow said. "We're not here to make noise, just to get our man and get out." The EMP grenade discharged silently, a pulse of blue light rippling through the detention block. As the turrets powered down and the guards' helmets flickered with static, the Valkyries moved with surgical precision. Reaching Renshaw's cell, Harlow found the diplomat sitting calmly on the edge of the cot, his sharp eyes lighting up with recognition. "Took you long enough," Renshaw said, his tone dry but tinged with relief. "Good to see you too," Harlow replied, slicing through the restraints holding Renshaw. "Can you walk?" "I'll keep up," Renshaw assured him, rising to his feet. The extraction, however, was far from over. As the team retraced their steps, alarms blared throughout the facility. The EMP had triggered a system-wide reset, and the Empire's forces were mobilizing. The Valkyries sprinted through the corridors, Renshaw flanked by Vance and Harlow. Kane provided overwatch, picking off pursuing guards with deadly precision. "Extraction point is 3 levels up," Drake said, checking the map. "We'll have to take the lift. Stairwells are compromised." The team reached the lift just as a squad of Imperial guards rounded the corner. Vance unleashed a barrage of covering fire, his rifle spitting plasma bolts that sent the guards diving for cover. "Drake, get that lift moving," Harlow barked. "I'm working on it," Drake snapped, his hands flying over the control panel. The lift doors slid open and the team piled in, firing suppressive shots as the doors closed behind them. The lift shuddered as it ascended, the sounds of pursuit echoing through the shaft. At the top, the team was met with a final obstacle, a squad of heavily armed Imperial guards blocking the exit. "Stay behind us," Harlow ordered Renshaw, raising his rifle. The battle was swift and brutal. Vance's grenades created chaos, scattering the guards as Kane picked them off from a concealed position. Harlow led the charge, his rifle blazing as the team carved a path to the extraction point. The dropship awaited them, its engines roaring against the planet's toxic winds. "Go! Go!" Harlow shouted, ushering Renshaw aboard. The dropship lifted off just as reinforcements poured into the facility, their shots bouncing harmlessly off the ship's reinforced hull. As the Valkyries ascended into the upper atmosphere, the tension finally broke, replaced by a sense of triumph. Renshaw leaned back in his seat, exhaustion and gratitude washing over him. "I owe you my life," he said to Harlow. "You owe us a drink," Vance quipped, earning a chuckle from the team. Harlow's expression remained serious, his eyes on the stars. "We're not out of the woods yet. The Empire won't take this lightly." The team fell silent, the weight of their actions sinking in. They had succeeded in rescuing Renshaw, but the mission's ripple effects had only just begun. The dropship vanished into the black void of space, leaving Zorith Prime behind. The galaxy, however, was far from done with them. The Valkyrie's dropship glided into the Terran flagship Hawk's hangar bay, its stealth field disengaging as it touched down with precision. A hush fell over the gathered personnel, a mix of awe and relief palpable in the air. General Carl Jones stood at the forefront, his arms crossed as he watched his finest team disembark with their prize. Captain Jack Harlow stepped off first, his expression hawk despite the weight of the mission still lingering on his shoulders. Behind him, Mark Renshaw followed, visibly weary but alive. The gathered crowd erupted in subdued cheers, their respect for the Valkyries evident in every gaze. Jones approached, his hand extended toward Renshaw. "Welcome back, Mark," he said, his voice steady. "You've had quite the adventure." Renshaw clasped the general's hand firmly. "More than I care to repeat," he replied, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "But I owe my life to these men. They didn't just save me. They reminded the Empire that humanity doesn't cower. In the war room, the Valkyries gathered around the central hollow table, the adrenaline of the mission giving way to exhaustion. Harlow gave his report with clinical precision, detailing every step of the rescue operation and the challenges they'd faced. Drake leaned against the table, his smirk returning as he recounted the EMP's flawless execution. "Took down their entire grid like a house of cards," he said, earning a chuckle from Vance. "And let's not forget Kane," Vance added, gesturing toward the sniper. "Half the guards didn't even know what hit them." Kane remained silent, his nod of acknowledgement the only response. Jones listened intently, his expression unreadable until Harlow concluded. "You accomplished the impossible," the general said, his tone laced with pride. "But this was more than a rescue mission. The Empire will view this as a direct challenge to their authority." "And what happens when they retaliate?" Harlow asked, his voice calm but pointed. Jones's gaze hardened. "They'll think twice. Humanity's strength isn't just in our technology or tactics. It's in our resolve. You've reminded them of that." News of the mission spread like wildfire across the galaxy, carried by both official broadcasts and shadowy whispers. The Galactic Empire's propaganda machine scrambled to downplay the incident, but the cracks in their facade were evident. In the Galactic Council chambers, alien delegates whispered among themselves, their confidence in the Empire shaken. Humanity had pulled off what no other species dared attempt, a direct strike on Imperial soil that ended in success. This wasn't just a rescue, one delegate murmured to another. It was a declaration. Back on Earth, the Terran Alliance capitalized on the victory. Diplomatic channels flooded with messages from species once hesitant to align with humanity, their tones shifting from skepticism to respect. For the first time in decades, the galaxy saw humanity as more than just a rising power. They saw them as equals. A week later, Mark Renshaw stood before the United Terran Assembly, his voice broadcast across human colonies and allied worlds. Dressed in formal attire, his face bore the weight of his recent ordeal, but his eyes sparkled with determination. "When the Empire abducted me, they sought to break our spirit," Renshaw began, his voice steady. "They wanted to show the galaxy that humanity could be intimidated, that we would bow under the weight of their demands. They failed." He paused, letting his words sink in. "What they underestimated was our unity, our resilience, and our will to stand against oppression. The Valkyries reminded them, and the galaxy, that humanity doesn't abandon its own. We fight for our people, for our principles, and for our future." The assembly erupted in applause, the sound echoing across the chamber. The following evening, a ceremony was held aboard the Hawk to honor the Valkyries. Under the starlit dome of the flagship's observation deck, the squad stood before an audience of high-ranking officials, soldiers, and civilians. General Jones took the podium, his voice steady as he addressed the crowd. "The Valkyries didn't just complete a mission. They proved that when humanity is pushed, we push back harder. They are the embodiment of our strength, our courage, and our resolve." Harlow and his team were called forward, each receiving the Star of Valor, humanity's highest military honor. When it was Harlow's turn, Jones clasped his shoulder firmly. "You've led your team through fire and brought them back stronger. You've shown the galaxy what humanity is made of." Harlow accepted the medal with a nod, his expression subdued but proud. As the ceremony concluded, Harlow found himself alone on the observation deck, staring out at the endless expanse of space. The stars seemed brighter tonight, their light untainted by the shadows of doubt. Drake approached, his usual smirk tempered by a rare moment of seriousness. "Penny for your thoughts?" Harlow glanced at him. "Just wondering what's next. The Empire won't let this slide." "They'll try," Drake replied, "but they'll learn. Humanity's not going anywhere." Harlow allowed himself a small smile. "No, we're not." Behind them, the Hawk's engines hummed to life, the ship preparing for its next journey. The galaxy was watching, but humanity was ready.